Good morning, everyone. Hope you are all having a great day so far. We're going to let some folks come in and join our webinar today. We've got a great one set up for you today. It's called The Heat is On, How to Keep Summer Sales Sizzling. So we're going to talk about some of the great things that we can do to be able to keep sales up this summer. So does that sound? Hey, while we're waiting for everybody to join, let's go ahead and throw some just where are you joining us from? And we can put that in the chat box. Daisy, I think our chat box should be set up. Let's see if we've got that. Yep. Yeah, where's everybody? Melissa, there's Melissa, Texas, Michigan. All right. Hey, Lindsay. Kim's joining us from Melissa. There's Ralph. Hey, Ralph. All right, McKinney. Jeff's joining us from McKinney. Good to see you, Jeff. Who else is with us today? Ralph, you're muted. Make sure we can hear you, man.
Now I'm unleashed and unmuted.
There you are. Unleashed and unmuted.
I like it. Look at this guy right here. Look at that guy. He's a hand raiser.
Oh, man. Raise your hand.
He's like my statue right here.
Yeah, that's right. You want to tell the story on that? We like to take pictures of each other when we're saying, "Hey, raise your hand if you've ever done this." And then right in that moment, we take a photo. So we have like all these photos of us with our hand raised.
I love it. Look at that lobby. People are coming in.
Yep.
Let them in the lobby. Let them in.
Here. I don't know, Kimberly. I think, can everybody hear us okay? Throw something in the chat for us.
I think they can.
If they can. I see some folks on the chat telling me where they're joining us from. All right. Good deal.
Look at Ben, bro. I can't hear. Uh-oh.
We can hear you.
Okay.
All right, Kimberly, you may have to turn up your volume. I don't know. I'm not the the computer guru for sure. Getting on a webinar is about the extent of my knowledge.
There you go.
All righty. Got some folks joining us.
Guess they'll keep hitting the lobby and then we'll keep letting them in. Daisy, I believe, right? Is Daisy in charge of the lobby?
Hey, you know what else? Something else we could throw out into the messages, into the chat is, what is your favorite summer activity? What is your favorite? Is it like the water park? Is it, I don't know. What are some of the boating? All right, sweet. Ryan says selling. That's his favorite summer activity. Hey,
that's the right answer.
Yeah, that's drinking on a patio. Jeff says drinking on a patio. I'm right there with you, Jeff. So chilling out,
man,
drinking
I
on
see
a
some
patio.
really cool people that I haven't seen in a while in here. I love it. I like
enjoying my mortgage and AC. That's great. I love it. Well, welcome in. We're going to give it a minute or two as folks continue to filter in, but make sure you grab your drink of choice. I don't know. We're talking about summertime. So it may be lemonade. It might be a limoncello. I don't know what it is. I'm not here to judge, but, grab your favorite drink. My name's Chance Dorsey, and of course, I'm joined by my favorite boss and great friend, Ralph Williams. How are you today, Ralph?
I'm awesome, man. I just I'm a little embarrassed to start the day. The last couple minutes, I always get ready. I try to practice what I preach. So I do my Wonder Woman pose, like to get my testosterone up and get my cortisol down. And I get all excited and I play a little music. So it's in my head, not in the office, but I'm going like this. And I turn around and then there's Daisy. and
Daisy's like, what are you doing in here?
she's laughing at me.
Yeah,
I was
Ralph and
like, I
I
don't know
feel a
if
little,
I'd rather. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah. Other than that, I feel
well,
good, man.
anytime Ralph and I do any kind of presenting, whether it's live or on a webinar, we like to get ourselves pumped up a little bit around the
Yeah.
office here. So, people think it's weird sometimes. So, but anyway, I'm glad you're here, Ralph. And today we're going to talk about something that affects all of us in the new home sales world. And that is, how do we keep the momentum going during the summer months? And so I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and hope you can see that. Ralph, can you see that? Is it looking good?
Yep. Yep.
My picture, your picture. All right, cool. So I can't really tell, but anyway, that's what we're talking about today. And if you've been in this business more than a season, you already know the pattern. Spring, you get those leads coming in. There's tons of traffic. People are buying, they're touring, the phones are ringing. So things are going, but all of a sudden something happens. What is that something that happens, Ralph? What do you think? What month does it hit us in?
It's funny because I think we were talking about this the other day, but I like in the past probably 5 years, I just don't feel like it's been as seasonal as it has been. I think this year, I think we're more in a normalized type of cycle. But usually, I'd have a great February, March, April, right after the Super Bowl. They call it selling season here in Texas, and it would get done probably like May, and everything that you sold from like January through May was probably like seemed like 60%, 65% of what you would sell for the year. So you're piling it all in there. But I think it starts, if I had to tell you when I think it is, I think it starts changing around graduation times. Like May, you start to see a little maybe runoff. I don't know what your thoughts are, but
Well, I mean, I totally agree with that. And listen, we're at a critical point right now in the year. I mean, this is the spring leads that we got, they haven't fully faded away. Many buyers who came in March and April and May, I mean, they're still thinking about it, right? They're still thinking about, but they're not certain enough to move forward yet. And then, like you said, they get sidetracked. And so let me restart the slideshow because it just did something weird on me. So hold on just a second. I'm working on it.
there you go.
But there it goes. All right. So, but anyway, it keeps going to the end of the slideshow for some reason. Let me hold on. Sorry,
Hit that
guys.
bottom on the right or something.
Yeah, that's it. Hold on. We've had some technical difficulties this morning here, so oops. Oh, hold on. Sorry, y'all. Ralph,
Maybe
tell a
that's what
joke or
happens in
something.
the summertime.
Tell a
The
joke or
brain
something,
melts.
Ralph.
Huh?
Tell a joke or something.
A little joke. Come on, here we
Slide
go.
later.
All right. I see people are still coming in. There was a couple that I don't know if they got in.
Hey,
Let me
can y'all?
yell at Daisy.
I think I got it in. I think I've got it. The slideshow going. Are we there?
We're
Can you
there.
see it?
I can see it. Let's go.
All right, let's go. So, all right. Sorry about that. Back to our summer challenges. So, what are the summer challenges? Ralph was right. I mean, somewhere around, we get some really good leads and things around March. But, things start to dwindle off from there. March, April, May, we start seeing people get, doing other things. They start taking vacations. They start to, have graduation events or end of school year events. So, you start to see really that new traffic kind of slow down, right? And then, but also people's focus change, right? Like they may have been coming in, they were really excited about looking at a home, they were really excited about touring and checking out what was available, but all of a sudden their focus changed because summer hit. The kids are at home right now. They start planning vacations and all those kind of things. And what does that do to our mindset as salespeople? That what that does is it starts to change our mindset a little bit, right? I mean, I felt that way when I was a sales guy. So, today we really want to kind of talk about what are some of the things that we can do to overcome or to get through this pattern and increase our sales, increase our opportunities, and increase our ability to convert deals and convert to sales, convert folks to sales. So we know the pattern. What can we do about it? What can we do with the leads that we have now? And then what can you do to continue to bring in new leads? All right. So
But
go
I
ahead.
guess the question I want to start with, and I'm curious um, on what our teams are seeing, because we got actually people from all over the country in here. We got mostly in Texas, but we have some West Coasters, East Coasters, some South Florida. We got some different people. What are you guys seeing? Like, if you could chime in on the chat, that would be good because it's funny. I think different areas also pose different challenges. Weather wise, or it's different everywhere. So it's like I remember when I lived in Vancouver, BC, British Columbia, and like the first time I lived there as an American being in Canada in that area, there was only a couple great months of weather. It was like July and August. So I swear to you, like July and August was closed to everybody. Everybody was like on vacation. It was just like drop dead. Sun's out. We're partying because the rest of the year is kind of doom and gloom, or at least not as sunny, and you can't do as many outside things. So, but what are you guys seeing out there in the market, like where you're at? Has it slowed down for you at all, or are you seeing it spurty based on interest rates or world events? Do you think there's a normal pattern this year, I guess, is what I'd like to find out.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great information. I mean, we kind of know our local area and we know what some of the challenges are here. And we kind of, I guess, a lot of times we feel like, well, yeah, it's slowed down. And Jeff says traffic is definitely slow. And I really think a lot of it has to do with world events and things that are going on. People don't feel as certain right now. But anyway, so what we want to talk about, what we can do about it and what can we do with the leads that we have. So let's start off with something that's really important. And I always say, and this is something I always have to work with on myself, right, Ralph? And that is our having our mindset. Because a lot of times our mindset is that, you know what, it's slow. It's the summertime. We kind of accept this fact that, hey, it's the summertime. It's going to be slow. This is just the way it is. All right. But I want us to try to change that and keep what Ralph and I call a prospecting mindset. And what is a prospecting mindset? Well, first of all, there's four mindsets that we talk about, and y'all have seen this before if you follow us, and that is that operation or opportunity creation has to come first. In other words, we always say you don't harvest in the fall if you don't plant seeds in the spring. And here's the thing: we just went through this spring season. We planted seeds. We talked to folks. We had leads. We had people come in and tour our homes. Those are the folks. Those are the seeds that we were planting. And right now at this time, what do we have to do? We have to continue to cultivate those and to water those and to get those seeds to grow. So that, but we've got to remember that opportunity creation comes first. The other mindset is to remember that selling is something that you do for someone, right? It's not something that we do to someone. And so you've got to believe that you can help your clients improve their lives. Everybody has, when they walk in, they've got some kind of pain, current pain and a future gain that they see. And so we've got to believe that we're the ones and what we have to offer can change their lives and improve their lives for the better. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's interesting. Before you go to the next one, Chance, on that, I would say like Warren Buffett always says, "Hey, when everybody's afraid, that's when you buy. When everybody's greedy, you sell." Right? And it's kind of the same thing. Like I really believe in. I think I'm a realist too. And as salespeople, we have to be hopefully optimistic. First of all, we have to believe that the better is in front of us. That's just how we work and how we operate as a whole. And what I would say is in the last time I felt like it was maybe this challenging was, and I don't count COVID because COVID we felt challenged for like 30 days and then it was like off to the races and we couldn't even control what was happening. But
right.
I would say like the 2008, 2009, 2010 time period where if you've been in the business, I'd like to see like you say, hey, I was in the business at the same time. I feel it's a different market than that, but it does feel, you know, kind of challenging. And I remember in that time period, when I would get a sale, like my sales pitch chance was, hey, you know what? When everybody is like feeling this way and the builders don't have a lot of margin in their deals, like I really, when I talk to builders right now, they're just doing volume. Like in general, there's not a
Hmm.
lot of margin. So it's not like builders are getting rich right now. Builders are trying to keep the team working and incentives are high, prices are great. Like honestly, people are getting the best buys right now. And so my pitch always was, hey, if you're going to be in here 3, 4, 5 years, like this is going to be a great move. And I can't think of a time where I said that when it felt like what we're in right now, where it wasn't true. Like it was it I it just always worked out that way. And my guess is anybody that's been in like Janet that says she's been in the business for a long time, and I know a lot of these people on here have been, those people made out like bandits. Like they were buying houses for 400 or 500 grand. Builders were hardly making anything. And then the market changes, it gets hot. Now those homes are worth 6, 7, 800,000. And so it's kind of the same mentality. So I would say selling is something you do for someone. And when somebody comes in right now, to me as a sales professional, your job is to tell them that, like, hey, I know you think things are tough, and that's why incentives are high and prices are great. Like our builders basically are not making very much money. The tax, or there you go, Rod. But it's like, it's pretty amazing. Like if you buy now, you're going to thank me later.
For
And,
sure.
and I know we talk, interest rates are always a key. And I always say, okay, maybe you pay a little bit more in the rate now, but a lot of builders also have incentive programs to buy down the rate. But I really feel like you can say with confidence, here's what my pledge to you would be. In a couple years, everybody that buys right now is going to thank you for buying right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, and to me, it's like we've got to remind people of the opportunity that exists right now. And
Hey,
a great
I saw
question.
something from John, just so you're on John, which is a good point too on this thing, is resale is also cutting into the build market, which to me, so here's the other dynamic, right? So when we get into a market like this, basically the compression to me is crazy as far as what the new homes sell for and what resale homes for. The spread's not that much, which new homes we all know are a much better deal for several different reasons, the energy efficiency, the product, all that good stuff. So, like right now, if you're in new construction, to me, we have an advantage because we typically can play with the interest rates and have different incentives. And builders are more, I would say they're not as emotional as home sellers, like the resale market. Those people are kind of attached to their home and they have a dollar basis. They're emotionally connected. Where I think builders have more of a business mindset and they're saying, okay, I'm not going to make as much money on these houses right now. Let's sell some houses and get to the next page. That's what I really think.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree, Ralph. The other mindset that we talk about is my interruption is worth the contact's time. And what you just talked about is a great segue into that. And because, right now, sometimes we feel like when we're doing follow-up that we're interrupting people, and that's not, we need to interrupt them right now because the opportunity is so great. And like Ralph said, in a few years, they're going to be thanking you, for selling them a house. And that's exactly the way it was in '08 and '09 because of the value of those homes that went through the roof when
Yeah.
that market, came back in. So, um, the other mindset is if you're doing follow up, well, sometimes we get rejected. I sold books door to door. Talk about rejection, but you can't let that get in your head. And they're not rejecting you, but what they're saying is no to a meeting or no to something else. So we've got to be consistent. We've got to keep our mindset right and make sure that we're doing what we can through these really tough times like this.
Yeah, I think I think that's our job, right? When you say is not rejecting you. So
Mhm.
what I want us to think about as sales professionals is here's our opportunity. If we actually get somebody live, it's our opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Obviously, haven't shared with you enough information that says this is probably a great time to buy. And I'd love to just share a couple of those things with you. And that's to me how I would reach back out to people. And yeah, it is. I get it, man. And you talk about the summer months, it gets hot. There's a lot of different reasons, but we can either, there's either To me, there's opportunity, there's excuses, and we can be on the opportunity side. So,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So mindset, super important, right? So, all right. The other thing is, we talked a little bit earlier about don't let those warm leads that we have. I mean, they were there not too long ago. It's, and we just need to make sure that we continue to water those leads and keep those going, and remember the statistics. And we talk about this a lot in our prospecting session, and that is, you know, 53% of buyers never get followed up with. I mean, to me, that's an amazing number. But somebody walks into our model home, we get to know them, we talk about what's available, we find out what their story is, we figure out what their current pain and their future gain is and what their vision is. And we know all those things about them and we don't follow up. The other part of this is, 25% of salespeople will stop after two meaningful contacts. The other one is only 10% follow up more than three times. But here's the problem in a market like this, and that is 80% of sales happen between the fifth and the 12th contact. So,
okay,
I mean,
so this brings up a good point, Chance.
yep,
So, when there's a lot of certainty in a market, we're big believers in 851, like 8 appointments every week is the goal, 5 shows, 1 sale. But when there's certainty in a market or people have confidence, those numbers change and your results get better. When the market's tougher, so buyers make decisions to buy quicker when other people are buying, right? It's like a feeding frenzy. The same is true on the downward spiral, is like in a slower market. What ends up happening is they take longer because they need more convincing. We have to create more certainty, and that usually takes us a couple more appointments than usual. But we give up. When you look at your stats on the left on your screen, if 50%, 3% of the buyers never get followed up with, okay, we've already given up. And here's why 53% of buyers don't get followed up with. We didn't connect with them when they came into the model, and we believe them that they were just looking at decorating ideas, or they're a neighbor, they're really not interested. But look, that's the Heisman. If they came in, we always have to believe as sales professionals, if they came in, there is a spark, and that
yeah,
spark is what we have to ignite. That's what we have to feed. We have to make sure, like when they come in, honestly, Chance, they're saying, justify to me why now is a good time, because I really want to buy one, but everything I see is making me hesitate. And so what ends up happening is we believe them, so we don't follow up. We call them again and we don't get a hold of them necessarily. So we've called, we left them a message, we text, and we get no response, and we go, oh, they're really not interested. So what we need to know is the stats show, just like on the screen, it takes about 5 to 12 contacts to get that sale right now. So if you're stopping at 1 or 2 or 3, then you're not going far enough and you're going to lose sales, period.
right, for sure. So we got a consistent follow up. Don't give up. Don't give up after three. Make it four, make it five, make it go on to that fifth, and make them meaningful contacts.
Yeah.
And I always say that, we want to add value to our follow up. So one thing that I've come up with is change your check-ins to check-ons. What is that? You're like, wait a minute, Chance. What does that mean, right? Ralph, what do you think that means? I mean, because a lot of times when I followed up, and I'm guilty of this myself, I would say something like that was very unplanned. Something like, hey, Mr. Prospect, I was just checking in. Are you still in the market? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. Okay. But what we really want to do is we
Okay,
want to
let's stop. I want
change.
to stop you,
Oh,
Chance. I want
oh,
to stop you.
stop
To
me. Okay,
me,
what is
it's
it?
so, well, you know why? When we say we're just checking in, you're 100% right that we really haven't paid attention to our notes in our CRM, or we haven't really connected with that buyer. And so it's a generic call that gets really bad results. Like, I just wanted to check in with you. And that basically says, I got nothing to say. Are you still in the market? And that to me seems like it's on the sales person's agenda
Right.
versus the buyer's agenda. So what do you mean by
Exactly.
checking on? Because that's what
Well,
checking in to me. Checking is an excuse, and it's weak.
Well,
Sorry.
what I mean by check on the things that matter to them. Like, connect back. We all went through a discovery time with them for the most part. We know their story. We know what's going on. We know their hot buttons. We know the, so let's check on those things that were important to them, you know? And when you do this, this is what it does. It shows that you listen. It shows that you care, that you're not just a sales guy chasing the sale. You're thinking of their specific situation. And so like, you know, if they had priorities, we want to check on the priorities that they shared with you. An example that you could say is, hey, you mentioned being close to your daughter's school was a big priority. Have you seen anything to that box yet? You know, so check on those things. You know, check on the goals that they mentioned. You know, you talked about wanting to be moved in before school starts. Does that goal still line up with your timeline? You know, these kind of things. Check on decisions that they're still weighing on. You were torn between building new or buying a used home. Have you had any new thoughts around that? So connect back to what you know and check on those things that are important. Check on the milestones they're trying to hit. You mentioned hoping, I mean, you mentioned hoping to list your current home by the end of this month. Are you still on track for that?
You know, it's funny when I see the checking on. See, it's part of sales is actually, first of all, understanding that prospects, that customer's vision,
Right.
right? To understand why they're moving in the first place or why they're thinking about moving in the first place, why there's a spark in their life. Those are important. And so not only do we have to actually understand their vision, which basically, when you understand their vision, that means you can repeat their vision back to them, right? And that's when you say you
Yep.
listen, you care, you get what they're saying, they can add to the vision. But at the next part is what you're doing on the check on, which is a good thing, is you're actually holding them accountable to what they are trying to accomplish, right? So it's not like what we are trying to accomplish. It's opting the checking in is like, hey, are you checking in? Are you still in the market?
That's
I
what
want
we
to sell
want.
a house. But when you're
Right.
checking on, hey, I want to make sure you're on your timeline to still accomplish your goals, that's checking on and that's on their agenda. So to
Right.
me, it's on their agenda, but it also is holding them accountable. And there was a trainer, and like I always like to give people credit, but I want to say that and all trainers have different personalities, different styles. I want to say that Jason Forrest is a trainer. He has a different style. But he has great things to share. And one of the things I learned from him was that he would say hold them accountable to the vision. And so the sooner you reach that vision, the sooner your life improves. Does that sound about right? Then I get to hold that person accountable to their vision. And I think that's so important now because if you don't have like a meaningful specific and a meaningful purpose and a goal that you're trying to achieve, all you're doing is you're just floating through life. So to me, it's holding that buyer accountable to get a better life sooner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Love that, Ralph. The other thing, you know, that we talk about is, you know, not only adding value to our follow-up, but creating urgency. And I guess, you know, I really shouldn't say create urgency because I think I've decided that we don't really create urgency. We have got to be the ones to uncover urgency, you know, because people sometimes we can tell somebody, hey, this is what you need to be urgent about. And look, Ralph, if somebody tells me, hey, this is going to happen or this is going to happen, guess what I do? I push back a little bit because I'm
Yeah.
like, but if somebody asks me a question, right, that makes me think about something, I create the urgency in myself. So, you know, an example of that is the questions we ask. What happens if rates go up instead of down? You know, I could tell somebody, hey, you know, you better watch out because rates are going to go up. I may not get as well a good of a response as if I ask them, hey, what happens if rates go up? What's your plan for that? And a great example of this is my son sells for a builder in College Station, and he called me one day, and he was kind of telling people, hey, the rates are going up because his company was offering a 3.99% rate. And so he called me one day and said, "Hey, what can I say to these folks?" I said, "Well, you're not going to tell them the things that you need to be worried about or the things that are going to create urgency, but ask them this question: Hey, what happens if the 3.99 goes away?" And he did. And guess what? They're like, you know what? That, the payment's going to go up to the point that we can't afford it or that we don't qualify. So they were able to, in their own mind, kind of figure out, hey, this is something that could happen. Some other
Okay,
questions.
it's a perfect point. I mean, that's a great way to say it because I always, we talk about creating urgency with our buyers. I liked actually the turnaround of uncovering it and getting them to actually uncover their own urgency. And right now, I know it is rate sensitive, so we're talking about that a lot with customers. But you know what? Most of the time, we do say, hey, well, we can buy it down. If you can buy it down and you're a builder with that incentive right now, I think you have an advantage. But the part that I like that you just said was, you know, what if rates go up? Like, ask the question. Like, hey, you ask the question. You're probably waiting for rates to go down, and so that's stalling your decision making process. But let's just say, what if rates don't? What if rates go up and they're 2 points higher for the next several years? So, like, get them to uncover it. I love that. Sorry, man, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like get them to think about it, get them to process that in their own mind, and then internally, and what we do when we ask those type of questions is we create tension, we create tension in their own mind of what's not right now and what is going to take to make it right, and I put some other questions up there, if we found the right home, what would it change for you? Getting them to process that and being able to say, hey, these are the things that would improve in our life, or this is what would be better for our family. What's your backup plan if these incentives go away? Again, getting people to think, how much would waiting cost if you decide to purchase next year instead of now? You know, and to me, that's a question that they may not know the answer for, but they might need help kind of discovering what the answer, and why right now is a really good time to buy.
Yeah, I remember a cartoon that we used to show all the time when I first started Sales Solve Everything in 2012. Like, I showed this cartoon and I should have found it for here, but what you said just reminded me of it. It was like it had a sign, right? And the market changed so quickly. It was like 10,000 in closing costs, given the kitchen sink, 20,000 in design center options, like all these things. And then the next thing you know, all those things are crossed up and prices go up $5,000 every sale. So it's like the market changes pretty quick when it does. And so it's just like, I think it's just, you're right. You have to create tension. You have to create friction. And it's like when somebody gives you an objection, that to me is a buying signal that gives us the opportunity to answer it. But that's the friction. Like, well, I'm
Right.
going to wait. Now we get to, I'd rather spar with somebody than somebody says, oh, yeah, your house is nice and great and blah, blah, blah. Like that to me, you can't tell if they like it or not. It's when they
Yeah.
object to something and they care about it is when the friction occurs. So I like that. And I like to
Yeah.
plant when Rod said plant the seed of doubt, but let them plant the seed of doubt, Rod. Like say, or what happens if, or you tell me what would happen, or what if you weren't able to buy next year because rates go up 2%? Are you happy with that condition, or would that still be painful? So anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah. All right. So these are all, I mean, so just some final prospecting The other thing I want you to remind you on all your follow-up and all your prospecting is make sure you're consistent with it. Schedule that appointment with yourself every day. The most important appointment that you schedule is the one you schedule with yourself, right? Where we're sitting down at a certain time and we're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, these are the calls I'm going to make. And schedule that every day. And one thing I've talked about recently is having kind of a theme every day for your prospecting time. Like, a lot of times the theme on Monday could be, I'm going to follow up with all my leads from the weekend. Okay. Tuesday might be the day that you follow up with all of your realtors. And Wednesday and Thursday and so on. And Wednesday may be a referral day where you call referrals or you email or you text referrals and see if there's anybody that they, help them kind of pick their neighbors a little bit.
Why
So I
why
like
would
to
you?
have a,
Why do you? What's your rationale behind that?
I
Just out of
be,
curiosity.
well, because number one, it changes up my prospecting time, right? It makes it to where it's different every day. The other thing is I'm focused on a certain message every day. In other words, when I'm talking to realtors on a
Mhm.
Tuesday, I know that my message is pretty much going to be the same, and I'm focused on that. If I'm just if I'm just calling different prospects and then I'm calling realtors, I'm calling my message is different. So it gives me, and I'm, you know me, Ralph, I'm an organizer, and I just
Yep.
like to kind of have what my theme is every day. So
Well, I
the
like that you get to create rhythm. You actually, so what you're saying, I like, and I didn't think of it that way. I don't know if that I've ever done it that way, but I like it because you can get really good at your message, right? So if you're calling realtors and your theme is the same, actually through the phone or passes through what we're doing. So I agree with that. I like putting it in little segments, and plus the salespeople we bored any way to break from that monotony.
yeah, for sure. The other thing that we talk about is make sure we dig deep into our prospects. You know, like go way deep. We many times we'll just call our A's and B's, right? We still need to be, nurtured, and so keep doing that. Be relevant and engaging, like we've talked about. Connect with each one of those, and then what's the goal? What's the goal with our call? With our follow up?
Oh, you
Always.
said it. Somebody in the chat box said, what
What is our
goal is
goal?
when you make a phone call to somebody? Come on, who's going to be it?
Come on, who's going to
There you
appointment?
go.
There it is,
There you
right?
go.
Yeah, for sure. Get that
Yeah,
appointment. So,
yeah.
a lot of times you hear me talk about the four avenues of prospecting. And Avenue One is past prospects. People
Yeah.
that have come in that we have a relationship with that we've seen. That's right, Rod. We go way back, don't we, brother? But yeah, I mean, to me, that's the number one avenue of prospecting is always the people who have been in our model home, right? But what are the other ones? I mean, realtors is for sure one of the avenues that I've always worked with. And, I called them my street team. Why did I call them my street team, Ralph? Because I didn't want to be the only one out there trying to sell the homes in my community. I wanted a whole group of folks out there. So, I mean, I always kind of had a core group. And the core group that I had, were ones that I went to lunch with. I went and visited with them regularly. I called them regularly. They were part of my prospecting schedule all the
Well,
time.
I was going to say it goes back to, let's just say with realtors and you create your street team. And let's say you call your realtors, like here's 50 realtors or 100 realtors or whatever it is that I want that are doing business in this area that I want to connect with. It would be like lenders, like when I'm on site and a lender would call you and say, hey, we do a great job and blah blah blah, and they would email me like once a week or whatever. But you know what? Those aren't the ones who got the business. The ones who got the business were the ones that actually called me, that visited with me, that had a cup of coffee with me, like they had lunch with me, that invested in me. And so I guess to me, I would say is, hey, don't be fooled and don't call it your street team unless you really have a relationship, and relationships take a little bit of time. It might be before you go into the model and say, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee. I'd love to share what we're doing, and I'd love to hear what you're doing. Right.
Right.
And
For
so
sure.
I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's why I would go to breakfast with them. I would go to their office. They would come to my model home. We would have events for them, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Because if
Yeah.
it's expensive, you're going to get shut down pretty quick, right? Especially when the market's tough and the builder says, "Look, I'm not going to spend $1,000, $2,000 on a realtor event." But when you're grabbing a box of bagels and a box of coffee for 15, $20 and maybe a bottle of wine to give away, to me that's inexpensive, but you can do that more often, so there's consistency
Yeah.
that's created there, so and we want it to be consistent
And
over and
I
over
do,
again.
and I do as a manager and division manager, looking at things and saying, okay, we could spend $1,000 on this or $500 on this, but the truth is, a cup of coffee, and it cost me, let's say $20, for that person to go have a cup of coffee with a top producer, always resulted in more results. I hate to say that, let and I know we've said this, so I'm just going to say it out loud. But we'd say, oh, realtors are mooches. Realtors just want to come and eat the free food and all that good stuff. Well, So I don't think it's always the best results. I think, it's good for branding, but I do think if you want to create a street team, just think if you had the three to five top producers, maybe say even 10 top producers in your area that you were like had coffee with regularly, like once a month or so, you would have way better results. So,
And maybe you don't have that group. And Ralph, you were talking to someone the other day, and I was listening in, and you were telling them how you could get that. And you were talking about going on to was it realtor.com or something? With
yep. Yeah.
explain that because there may be people on here that don't have that group yet, and they want to develop in that for their area. But talk about that real quick
Well,
because I think it's great.
you can go on to realtor.com and then you can search, find realtors and then in your area, like put your zip code in, and it'll just shoot you all the realtors that service that area. And in that search, it tells you like how many listings they have, how much activity they're doing, how many homes they've sold, kind of their price point that they're working in. And it's all realtors and it gives them their cell number. So to me, that's a great place to start is look for the producers in that group and then start creating a team that way. Because a lot of us don't know where to start it. We don't have the relationships with all these realtors, but you can't start one unless you're reaching out. And I can tell you this, some of my best relationships that I have today are from reaching out to people. I'll give you one example of a person that I love to death, and he's a mentor, and I consider him a good friend, and is Don Dykstra, who runs a big company, is probably the most effective, one of the most effective home builders in the United States. But I didn't know him. I reached out, I think I saw him on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I know, his kids went to South Lake Carroll. My kids went to South Lake Carroll. And I just said, hey, I see your kids went, and I'd love to meet you sometime or whatever. And we have dragon kids. And anyway, so we got together and he invited me to have coffee with him. And this is, and he's become honestly a very influential person in my life. And it was because I reached out to him. And I think anybody would go, wow, like, how did that happen? Another guy, Sean Goff, like I reached out online. He's one of my best friends. And all these people,
Yeah.
I didn't know them, but until you reach out to these people, you're not going to know them. And these are friends that I've had for years and years because I prospected and I was just reaching out to people that I would like to get to know. And then I invested, but they invested in me too. So
Yeah.
I would just say, don't be shy. But you're right,
Yeah, this
Matthew.
is yeah,
A great
this is a
man.
relationship business for
Yeah.
sure. And the other thing is you just want to take that opportunity to, it's one thing for us to know what are the features and benefits and the things that set our builder apart, but you want to teach those things to the realtors as well. You want them telling the same story that you're telling, when somebody walks into your model home. You want them saying the same things about your company as well. So
Yeah.
the other thing is, I always talk about referrals. This is my third avenue of prospecting. And, Ralph and I had somebody that worked at our company, Steve Bradford, that
Mhm.
gave us some really good line for, setting up or setting the table for referrals. And, and the story I always tell when I was working in the model home, the referral message was the last thing that I said. Somebody would walk into my model home. They had their keys. We went through the entire, buying process, and they're excited about it. And I'd say, well, hey, if you know any friends that you want to live in the community, send them our way. But, our friend Steve used to say, look, we need to set the table for referrals. And that is, you can do it by asking one simple question. And that is, hey, did a friend or a family, like right when they walk in, maybe sometime early in the presentation, hey, did a friend or a family member happen to send you in? How did he do it, Ralph? What was it? What he would
Well,
say?
so if they said yes, which I always remembered it too, because it's very powerful. So everybody should write this down on their notes, like take this away and use it. But if they would say yes, I was, the Smiths happened to refer me. And then we as a sales professional would say, oh, that doesn't surprise me. Most of the people who purchase a home here at ABC Builders were referred by friends and family members. And so all of a sudden there's a sense of relief that, wow, man, that's amazing. Now, if they said no chance, It was just a slight version of that. It was, oh, that surprises me instead of
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me.
you're still
That
surprised.
surprises me. Most people that buy in this community are referred. And so what message does that send to somebody that's across from you? Is like, wow, this is a company that must take care of their customers and they get a lot of referrals. So it already sets the stage like you provide great service. So I love that. And Steve taught me that, right? All these different people in your life teach you different things, and we have to be able to use them. I hope people can use that one.
Yeah, and if we say that we're a referral worthy company, well, we've got to be referral worthy. And I was really blessed in that I had a great superintendent. I had a great builder. And so I had a lot of happy homeowners in my community. So it really worked out well. And this, sometimes we don't have that and we can work on getting better at that. But the other thing is I always liked to host homeowner events. Where I would have my homeowners come to my model home, we'd celebrate something. The reason I did this was number one, I wanted to stay in contact with them,
Yeah,
but I also wanted my prospects, the people that I'd been working with, maybe they hadn't made a decision yet or they were still on the fence about living in the community. I wanted to introduce them to my homeowners. And I'm telling you, Ralph, when I did that, I didn't have to really do any selling. Inevitably, if I had a big homeowner event, the next day or so, I would have somebody that maybe met, and they would come in and they, hey, we met the Smiths. Man, we just want it. We're ready to move forward. They kind of found out that the water's warm in the community. So
I
anyway,
think it's a
and
great
so I
idea,
always say
especially
if
if
you have an event like
yeah,
that, make sure you invite your prospects.
yeah,
Yeah.
and your home, and like you said, your homeowners, like that is definitely like now. Obviously, you better make sure you're providing great service. You don't need to invite a homeowner and they're not happy, right? And then they tell
Yeah.
everybody
We don't
you
want it to
should
turn
stay
into a
away,
gripe
stay
session,
away.
right? Yeah, you don't want to buy a home here. Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure you
Right.
have happy homeowners.
Yeah.
And these events like this really get busy. So I would get my homeowners involved. I had
Yeah.
homeowners that, would love to do these kind of events and I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, y'all help me out. Y'all go get the drinks and I'll cover all the cost of it. So that was always something that I would do. And then the fourth avenue that I always try to incorporate was the community in and of itself. Just, and that's not my community, that's the community outside of my community. And I would try to go after the renters. I would talk to some of them, and this obviously depends on, your price range and that kind of thing. But, there's a lot of renters out there that are going to be looking for a new home
Yeah.
at some point, so we need to touch them. We need to stay in contact with them. First responders. I had a builder that had a Hometown Heroes program. And so I would go to the teachers' lounges, or I would go to a police station or a fire station, and I would talk about that, that extra incentive that we had for first responders. Local businesses are a great place because many times they have HR departments that are bringing families into the area or transferring families. So me staying in contact with them and me kind of being front of, top of mind for them was a great place for them, sometimes to send folks to me if they knew that they had families
Yeah.
coming
I
in.
want to make one comment in this section because I probably talked I I think we've all heard all these things, right? Here's the difference though of those who are successful and those that are not. Is those that are consistently doing it, right? So like I'll bring up different people, but I'll just say a first name. There was a guy named Valente, and he would always go to the grocery store and grab all those renter magazines or the apartment magazines, and he was in a price point. He would just stuff flyers of new. He'd go back to his car, stuff them in them, and then go put them back on the shelf.
I
And but
love it.
it was consistency, and it's like if you're in an area where you have credit challenged buyers, right? Those are buyers that want to figure out how to get in a home. And I remember that in these times, those were really successful, like of helping people buy a home. But like right now, I think if you're in a kind of a credit challenge area, maybe a first time home buyer area, I would consistently do right now. I would do um, uh, show them a home buyer seminar all day long, whether it's credit repair involved, but in those areas, that would be something that'll definitely get you some activity if that's your buyer.
Yeah, for sure. And the
Yep.
other one was charitable organizations. I always tried to work with them. I mean, I've been in Kiwanis Club, and
Yep.
we're just getting involved in the community is a great place to meet people, find prospects, and just stay busy like that. And really, this is what we're trying to do. I mean, right now, market's tough. People aren't walking in. So we've got to, a pro is going to go out and go, I've got to find the folks. I've got to find where they are to bring them into my community. And that's what we want to do is we want to create an opportunity by prospecting where we dig deep, we stay in touch with our realtors. We really work to get referrals in and we really cast our net wide in our community. So, to me, it's like, and those are the four avenues, and of prospecting. And what I've always said, our goal is feet in the model, right? And it may not be qualified feet. It may not be someone that's looking for a home, Ralph. It may be someone who knows someone who's looking for a home. So the more people, the more exposure you have, to me, it's like that's going to help you in these really tough times, finding those prospects out there, finding the ones that you can convert, getting the opportunity to tell your story over and over again.
Agree.
All right, so things to remember. We're going to start wrapping it up here. And number one thing I brought up today is keep your mindset right, right? I mean, right now it's slow, it's tough. Keep that mindset right. Stay top of mind through following up and check. Remember, turn your check-ins to check-ons.
Yeah.
Connect back to the buyer when you're
I
following
love
up
that.
with them. Turn following up into a system. And that is, have a consistent system that you track. I'm going to call this. This is the day I'm going to do this. These are the phone calls I'm going to make. This is the theme that I'm going to have today when I do my follow up.
Well, and I like the system. I like the system too, as far as, you're going to make sure that you call enough or email or text. Like we've got to use different ways to communicate with people, and different ways have different results. And so just know that, like, to me, if I would still believe this to this day, is when you make a phone call, send a text if you don't get a hold of them,
For
right? And
sure.
emails don't get as open quickly and not as enough. So that's almost like a brand builder, like a thing. But when you're connected to somebody, a text or a call is usually the best way to see engagement. So
Yeah, Ralph, I learned that from you. I
yeah,
mean, it's like every time I make a phone call, if I don't get them, I leave a message and then I
yeah,
text them.
there you go.
And I get results from that. So, that's a big deal as well. Remember that sales are made between the fifth and 12th contact. So stay consistent on your follow-up. And of course, work hard through the four avenues of prospecting to create those opportunities to get more feet in the model.
Hey, Chance, I don't know. I know this is not part of our plan, but I'd love to do it. We have a lot of people on this call that are out in the field and they're making stuff happen. First of all, I know if you're on this call, you're somebody that actually takes action, tries to improve yourself, is
Yep.
looking for better ways. And so I would love, if you guys don't mind, in the chat box, is what's working for you? What event, or have you done anything lately that you feel moves the needle a little bit for you? Because we'd love to talk about it. Or if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. But have you done something lately that moved the needle? I'm asking you. You guys are there, feet in the street, and I'd love to share it. So, broke for breakfast or luncheons, tour design center. I love that. Like, if you have a design center in your model, or like, I think that's a great idea. I remember at the builder I used to work for, we'd have wine Wednesdays, and we had a design center, and we would invite prospects into that design center and show them all the different things, and that got people out there, and that made people touch and feel and get excited. Good. Listing our homes on Facebook or Facebook groups. I haven't seen that. That's good. I like that.
Stocking
Stocking a
teachers
teacher.
lounge with
Wow.
K cups and snacks along. That's
Wow.
awesome. Love it. That's great.
I love that one. I've never heard that one, Kim. That's awesome. Do you do that a lot with, like, that is really cool. You almost could brand your cups and put them in the teacher's
Yeah, you could
lounge.
put your builder, yeah, that would be awesome. Put your builder
I
logo on
love
the
that. I
K
love
cups.
that. Those are
Yeah,
good
I love it.
ideas.
That's awesome for sure.
Hey,
All right.
a couple little things I want to say that I would like people to remember right now. When it's slower and we don't have the compression, I want everybody to think about overlapping your appointments slightly. I want you to keep that in mind when you're scheduling appointments. Don't try to separate them out. Remember, try to get them to overlap each other. So if you only had 2 appointments in a week, your goal should be try to like really overlap those by 10, 15 minutes, because what buyers need is usually permission or to see that other buyers are buying too. And so that creates that perception that we need, that naturally creates that urgency. And so I would say that. I would also say that time kills deals. So if you have somebody, your goal should be to really get 1, 2, 3 appointments in the next 7 to 10 days, like really quick. Really quick is what you have to do, because that keeps buying temperature hot. And the longer they wait, the cooler they get. Okay, let's see what they say here. Rod says, doing a 2-step realtor presentation today. I bought them Chick-fil-A this morning and they are coming to tour my community today. Okay, good. I like that
Rob, I
too.
love it. Rod, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good
that's
stuff,
good,
man.
because you know what that did, Rod, was you created some obligation. So you actually did something for them, and in return, they're doing something for you. I like that. Join in neighborhood HOA events. That's a good one. I never thought about that one. Um, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, Pam. We'll send it to you. Awesome. Pay to play, baby. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Hey, Chance. The
Yes.
summer's hot and we can be hot too. Okay. We,
Yep.
we don't
For
have to
sure.
let the summer melt us and melt our
Yep.
brain. And so, like, we have to be on. Remember, our urgency, our excitement transfers to buyers. If we feel down, if we're lethargic, it actually also goes to buyers. So make sure, hey, that your game face is on, you're ready, you're excited. And if they
Yep.
buy today, guess what? They are going to be praising you in 3, 4, 5 years when their house goes up in value. They can refi or not, and or rates went up and they bought now and they're like, "Whoo, thank God we bought a house." So
Yeah.
anyway, any last words of wisdom, Chance, before we sign off?
Well,
Right
just
to right, Jeff. I love it.
just some plugs for what we got coming up for sure. We've got our pro school coming up. Follow us and check us out at sellsolveeverything.com.
Yeah.
We've got some really cool events coming up. We're going to continue doing our webinars quarterly.
If you haven't,
And
if you haven't been in a pro event, so those that haven't been, I think there's some on here, and you could chime in if you want. But and this will sound scary to some people, but exciting for others. We do 2 days of role playing. Basically, usually it's 4 topics like closing, negotiating, handling objections, professional like numbers crunching and all that stuff. And what we do is that group, which is from all different companies, we don't talk company names or titles. We're there to try to improve, but we basically guide this conversation, and you guys practice back and forth. We compete. You can be a winner of your section. You could be the overall winner. But what ends up happening, it gives you all the things you need to be successful. And you should definitely go to that. So anyway,
awesome. Thank you,
all right.
Ralph. I'm
Thank you,
Chance
Chance.
Dorsey, Ralph
And think,
Williams.
yep,
We're
thank you
Sell Solve
guys.
Everything. And thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a great, outstanding summer. See you soon.
Happy selling.